Key concept. Under FRE 401, evidence is relevant if it has any tendency to make a fact more or less probable than it would be without the evidence, and if that fact is of consequence to the determination of the action. Example, imagine a criminal case where a footprint is found at the crime scene. If the size of the footprint matches the defendant's shoe size, this evidence is relevant because it makes it more probable that the defendant was present at the scene. Most foundational concepts in evidence law, relevance. 401 defines what it means for evidence to be relevant in a legal case. This is where we begin when evaluating whether evidence can be admitted in court. Key idea, evidence is relevant if it meets two criteria. It has any tendency to make a fact more or less likely than it would be without the evidence. The fact is of consequence to the case. Explanation. The first part emphasizes how evidence contributes to proving or disproving a point. Even a small degree of relevance can satisfy this requirement. The second part ensures that the evidence relates to an issue that is legally significant in the case. Example 1. Physical evidence. Imagine a burglary case. A crowbar found at the scene with the defendant's fingerprints is relevant because it makes it more likely the defendant was involved in the crime. Example 2. Witness testimonies. A witness testifies that they saw the defendant near the scene at the time of the crime. This evidence is relevant because it connects the defendant to the location and time of the event. Now that we understand the basic concept of relevance under FRE 401, let's take it a step further with FRE 403. Even relevant evidence can be excluded if its probative value is substantially outweighed by certain risks. FRE 403 provides a balancing test to determine when this exclusion should occur. FRE 403 allows courts to exclude relevant evidence if its probative value is substantially outweighed by certain risks, ensuring fairness and efficiency in trials. The rule identifies three primary risks that can justify exclusion: unfair prejudice, confusion or misleading the jury, and wasting time or presenting unnecessary evidence. Unfair prejudice occurs when evidence has an undue emotional impact on the jury, potentially leading to decisions based on emotion rather than reason. Confusion or misleading the jury refers to evidence that may distract jurors or cause them to focus on irrelevant or ambiguous issues. Additionally, evidence that is repetitive or adds little to the case may be excluded to prevent wasting time and streamlining the proceedings. FRE 403 provides a balancing test. Unfair prejudice occurs when evidence has the potential to provoke an emotional or irrational response in the jury, leading them to base their decision on emotion rather than on a reasoned evaluation of the facts. The key concern is that such evidence might cause the jury to overemphasize its significance or draw conclusions that are not logically supported by the evidence itself. For example, graphic crime scene photos, though relevant to showing the nature of an injury or crime, might shock or inflame the jury, causing them to sympathize with the victim or become biased against the defendant unfairly. Similarly, evidence of a defendant's unrelated criminal history could lead jurors to believe the defendant has a bad character, increasing the likelihood of a conviction based on past behavior rather than the facts of the current case. Under FRE 403, courts use the balancing test to evaluate whether the probative value of such evidence, its ability to prove something meaningful in the case, outweighs the risk of unfair prejudice. If the risk is deemed to substantially outweigh the probative value, the evidence will be excluded to ensure a fair trial. Let's move on. Waste of time or unnecessary presentation refers to evidence that, while possibly relevant, does not add significant value to the case and can lead to inefficiency in the courtroom. Under FRE 403, such evidence may be excluded if it is repetitive, redundant, or contributes little to the resolution of the central issues. The goal is to prevent trials from becoming unnecessarily lengthy or bogged down by excessive or irrelevant details. For example, calling multiple witnesses to testify about the same minor fact, such as the color of a car involved in an accident, would likely be considered a waste of time if the fact is already established and undisputed. Similarly, presenting extensive documentation that does not meaningfully advance the case might be excluded for being unnecessarily cumulative. By excluding evidence that wastes time, courts aim to streamline proceedings, maintain focus on the key issues, and conserve resources, all while ensuring that the jury is not overwhelmed with trivial or excessive information. This provision helps to balance the efficient administration of justice with the presentation of necessary and meaningful evidence. One of the more nuanced and debated topics in evidence law, character evidence. While it might seem like a person's character should play a significant role in court cases, the federal rules of evidence, particularly FRE 404 and 405, impose strict limits on its use. Let's break down these rules, examine their exceptions, and understand how character evidence can be introduced in court. FRE 404, General Prohibition on Character Evidence. Key rule. FRE 404A prohibits using character evidence to prove that a person acted in accordance with a character trait on a specific occasion. In other words, you can't argue, they did it because they're the kind of person who would do it. Purpose. This rule is designed to prevent unfair prejudice and to ensure that cases are decided based on facts, not on assumptions about someone's character. Example, in a theft case, the prosecution cannot introduce evidence that the defendant has a reputation for dishonesty to suggest they committed this specific theft. FRE 405, Methods of Proving Character. Key rule. When character evidence is admissible, it can only be proven in specific ways under FRE 405. Reputation or opinion evidence. A witness may testify about the person's general reputation or provide their opinion of the person's character. Specific instances of conduct allowed only when the person's character is an essential element of the charge, claim, or defense, such as in defamation or child custody cases. Example. In a defamation case where the truth of the allegedly defamatory statement is at issue, specific instances of conduct may be introduced to prove the plaintiff's character. Exceptions to FRE 404A. Criminal cases. The defendant may introduce evidence of their own character to show that it's inconsistent with the alleged crime, e.g., evidence of honesty in a fraud case. The prosecution, in turn, may rebut this evidence with contrary evidence. The defendant may also introduce evidence of the victim's character, such as in a self-defense case, to show the victim's violent tendencies. The prosecution can rebut this with evidence of the victim's peaceful character. Case example, Michelson v. United States, 1948. Facts. The defendant introduced evidence of his good character, specifically his reputation for honesty. On cross-examination, the prosecution questioned the character witness about the defendant's prior arrest. Holding. The court upheld the prosecution's ability to challenge the defense's character evidence, establishing that when a defendant opens the door by introducing good character evidence, the prosecution is allowed to rebut it. Takeaway. This case highlights the risks of introducing character evidence in criminal cases. It opens the door for rebuttal. FRE 404B, prior bad acts. Key rule, prior bad acts cannot be used to prove that a person acted in accordance with their character. However, they may be admitted for other purposes such as proving motive, intent, preparation, plan, knowledge, or absence of mistake. Example, in an arson case, evidence that the defendant previously set fires may be admissible to show intent, but not to prove that they are a bad person.